All right, Chris, here we are again, episode 27.
What is up?
Getting back on episode 3 of season 2, as we're calling it. But
Yes.
yeah, we're back at it, man. Not as much going on this week, but at the same time, I've been pretty busy. I think you have too, so we'll have plenty to talk about today.
Yeah, we got plenty going on.
Right off the top, some of the stuff we've been talking about with the automotive and racing news. I had a chance to watch a NASCAR race at Circuit of the Americas, which was really cool to watch. Connor Zilisch, the guy that's coming up, he won the Xfinity race, but ended up crashing in the actual Cup Series race. So he was racing in both and ended up getting wrecked and technically finished last. I think it was it Kyle Busch? I forget who it was that made a comment or, commented back on one of his Twitter posts and was like, hey, I finished last in my Cup Series debut race too. And that guy's had a stellar NASCAR career. So it happens. It was a rough day. SVG Shane Van Gisbergen is from New Zealand, and he led a good bit of the race. Ended up, finishing, I think, top 5, but he was doing pretty good. But it was all in all, it was a good weekend to watch racing for sure. IndyCar kicked off in St. Petersburg, which I never realized when IndyCar races, they're it's closed sections of city streets the way they do Monaco and F1.
Mm-hmm.
And I never realized that. So I watched that race. That was a really good one. And then F1 started up with their testing. So everything's thawing out and we're getting all kind of racing and stuff going on. Our local tracks running their drag and drive event this weekend, actually.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. They do it's just a single, you meet somewhere away from the track, but you have to drive into the track and then you make passes
Right.
and then you drive out. But they're running that this weekend, so that's pretty cool.
Cool.
Starting to see a lot of events kicking up. One of the 8th Mile track has started doing a Thursday night test and tune, which is pretty cool because it's a lot less crowded. So I might try to hit up one of those here pretty soon.
Yeah, I want to say so we had my local track, they closed last year, but the other one, probably about 20 miles down the road, that had been closed for several years, reopened this year. So
nice.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of doing some no time, kind of really no prep type stuff. Because I don't know if they went through and put the money into redoing the scoreboards yet or not. So.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. I think I mentioned our quarter mile track around here. You've got to have somebody that wants to invest in it. So the 8th Mile track used to be, not as many people went there. Everybody went to the quarter mile track, and they're both the same exact. So it was 56 minutes to drive to either one of them for me. But the quarter mile track has just gotten to where, as the day goes on, I swear they start out and you can go out there and you can hook really good. You make a few good passes. And then just as the day goes on, it starts to fall off. And, by the end of the night, the test and tune, you just can't do anything. But then you can go to the 8th Mile track now and make passes all night long. And it stays pretty consistent. And I don't know if it's just that the prep kind of falls off as the day goes on, or, I'm not some professional drag racer and I'm not diminishing the work that it takes to keep the track in good condition and, to provide a good surface to race on. But it's almost like that prep just gets worse and worse as the night goes on and they don't stay as consistent on it. And then it's just,
that and
not worth being there.
And you have the dew coming down and it gets cooler at night. So that makes a big difference too.
Yeah. Yep. But, I've never really done 8th Mile stuff, but it feels like it's a lot less, time to stuff to tear up. So, maybe it's more my speed when I'm as cheap as I am.
Well, that, honestly, where I'm at, that's all my local tracks are is 8. But yeah, the 8th is where you get all the work done. You got to be able to get it down, get it to launch and hit them first few gear changes or single gear change or however your setups is. But yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm going to go check it out. I've got some local guys that, they go down there and race. That's how I found out about the Thursday night test and tune. So we'll talk about it in a little bit when we get to talking about some garage organization and just kind of what we've been doing to get the shops cleaned up. But I picked up a new toolbox. And the guy that I bought it from, he's building a new shop and was selling off some stuff. And he was telling me about it. So I think they're going to go down. I think they went this past Thursday. So the next time they go, I'm going to try to go hang out, even if I don't take the car. But it should be a good time.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a good time.
So for me, most of where I've been busy is the garage organization. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But
Yeah.
also just, you know, we've had some weather coming through and needed to get out and, rake some of the pine straw and stuff that fell. So I've just been busy with that kind of stuff. But you've been pretty busy with the Caprice, right?
Yeah, so I had a little issue with the head last week when I went to go put it on, and I ended up taking it back, and he fixed it, and it was just an oversight. Wasn't really a big deal. Didn't he didn't charge me. He made it right. All it did was make me wait an extra day or two, but not a big deal. So I went ahead and threw it on, and I went to go rebuild my rockers, and got to looking at them, and the one that beat up the valve, the rocker was super chewed up on the tip. And then I was looking through all of them, and two other ones on that side had like pitting where it rides on top of the valve. And we looked at those two valves, and both of them kind of had little scuff marks on them, like little pitting looking marks on them. So I'm like, so the machine is fixed those issues. And then I just, you am going to replace those rockers. So it's just another thing added to the list that I got to do now. But, so I've been chipping away at that. I did get the head on, the intake on. Um, like when I pulled it apart, I didn't pull any of the accessories off the front. Still got the radiator in it. So I just drained the radiator, pulled the intake off, and unbolted the header and pulled the one head off. So uh, I'm hoping to get it running this weekend. I'm going out of town next week for 2 weeks. So I will hopefully get it running before then.
So you don't want to take that other head off and check those rockers on that side.
Well, the rockers, I've checked them, but I'm replacing them anyway.
Oh, that's right.
But the valves on all that side look fine. I don't know what happened on the one. I know the one was where the bearing broke and then the rocker danced around. But the other two, I mean, unless they were starting to get a little bit of deflection, but it almost looks like just the metal itself was just starting to pit and like flake off. It's just kind of weird. And it just started burgering up the valves just a little bit. So replacing all that shit, and we'll see what happens. See how long this motor lives. I'm getting kind of, I mean, actually, this has only been the real issue, and it was my fault, but it is what it is. But
Of course, it all starts happening after you got rid of the spare 5.3 that was in the garage.
yeah, but that would have wouldn't have worked very well because it was Gen 3, and this,
That's right.
yeah, and I'd have to do, I don't want to do bullshit. So I would just find a Gen 4 6-liter block or something for if I had that issue, or just maybe take my time and have a motor built. I don't know. But then I've got this other car had 20 years that I'm not doing shit with. And no,
It's
then
time.
yeah, it really is. Well, that was my plan this winter was actually, I'm like, all right, I was going to start cutting that bitch up, and I was going to so that way I had to do something to it. And I was actually going to film me whacking the side with a hammer just so that way I have to fix it. But then, the Caprice broke. So, I daily drive that. I want to get it back together. So,
It's always interesting to me, and I get it. Like, the car's kind of put away for the winter. You're not going to be driving, especially when you live somewhere you get snow and things like that. There's no racing going on, so everybody always has their winter projects, right? But like for me, there's never a time in the year that I want to work on my car less than in the wintertime.
I agree. That's how I am. I don't know. I just sometimes just that's the way it goes.
Yeah, maybe it's just the winter blues or whatever, but that's like with
Right.
me,
I
now
get
that the
it too.
weather's gotten a little nicer, like I've just been like last night, I literally raked pine straw for like 2.5, 3 hours when I got off. And were there probably better uses of my time during that time? Sure. But it was like, I've just got to be productive. I got to do
Right.
something this
Well,
afternoon.
and so I 100% feel that because the last week or two, the weather's been getting nicer and I've been out doing stuff and I'm like, man, I feel fucking great. And it's, I guess, that vitamin D and then, the weather getting nice, the winter blues going away. This is why we hate cold weather. This is, the motherfuckers are like, oh, it's summer. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's hot. You might sweat a little bit, but come on. God damn.
The argument's always, oh, when it's hot, I can only take off so much clothing, but I can always put on more when it's cold. I'm like,
Well, see, my thing is, I like wearing clothes, so I would much rather not have to wear anything. But no, I mean, but then what if I want to go outside? I want to do something. I want to be outside. I want to be in the sun.
Hmm.
And like, don't want to have all this shit on me. It's just,
Yeah. Well, and not to mention, no matter what you wear, right? Like, yeah, you can wear gloves, but how much can you get done
right.
wearing gloves and things like that? And once my toes or my fingers are caught, I'm just like, I'm miserable. I'm
Yeah. Well,
ill.
yeah, like the dexterity gets cut down. It's just, it's shitty.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean,
So
that,
I'm not a winter project guy when it comes to that
no.
kind of stuff.
And I know we talked about this a good bit. I've been trying to go through as I'm working on this thing is working on cleaning my garage up more, which I've been saying that people have known me. I've been saying that for going on 15 years now. But because like I'll go through spells and I'm like, I'll do this and clean it up, and I'll get a big chunk of it clean and organized, and then it sits like that forever. And then you work on stuff. And then my issue is now I'm just at this point where I'm like, I have so much bullshit and I'm ready to go through it and just start getting rid of stuff. And yeah, so there's going to be some purging coming up this spring and summer, like parts, probably a lot of stuff I'll give away. I got like some oddball tools and stuff that's I'm not going to use. I'll probably give away or sell. I don't know. I got a lot of shit I want to get rid of.
I've been going through mine because I got the new toolbox, and because I knew I was gonna be getting the toolbox, I finally got around to hanging the tire rack on the wall. I think I mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
So I got the WS6 wheels up on that. I mounted my hose reel for my air compressor. I've got to get a whip hose to connect to the air compressor.
Yeah.
So where I mounted it won't quite reach, but then, knowing that the toolbox was coming just kind of lit a fire in me to get a bunch of other stuff organized. So I started moving things around and thinking about how do I really want the shop laid out so that it's conducive to get out there and work. And then he brought the box by on Sunday, and I'm sure I'll rearrange what's in what drawers and all that stuff a million times. But started putting my tools away, and now like my workbench is clean again. And so
Yeah.
I've got a bench to work from, and that's been good for a lot of reasons to be able to
Yeah.
get out there and just get when I don't feel like I'm wandering around wondering where a tool is or
Right. And
parts, that sort of thing.
that's what I've been fighting with this whole go around with this car. And when I did, when I pulled the engine out of it a couple years ago and did all the work, I had all my shit laid out, knew where everything was. Given it looked like a mess, but like I had all my stuff clean and ready, my tools there when I started. And so I kind of, had everything. Well, this go around, I'm like, all right, it's a this, and this. And I'm like looking through everything and my shit's everywhere. And I'm like, fuck, all right, let me find this. And then I go find this and I got to find another one. So that's another big reason why I need to do a cleanup out of here. Cause I do know I've got sockets and tools that are like, I've got random totes and boxes and shit just everywhere. And there's tools in every one of them. Cause I go through these spells. I'm like, all right, I got to start cleaning shit up. And I look just to consolidate things. I'm going to throw them all in this box. And then that continues to happen. And then that's why I can't find anything because it's everywhere.
Doom
So,
pile.
yeah. So I really need to do that. And it's just, I got to catch up on some of this other shit. But that's what I'm really wanting to do before I got this fucking camper out here. I'm really debating on, I'm about taking it apart and making a trailer out of it, but I don't really.
That sounds like an awful idea. That sounds like a sell it and go buy a trailer.
No, like a utility trailer, not a car trailer. Like, just
I
like,
know.
yeah.
Just sell the
Well,
damn thing and go buy a utility trailer.
that was my other thought. I'm like, do I really want to fuck with this thing? I'm like, or I could just try to get rid of it for like $200 or $300 or whatever. Just get rid of it. And then either go buy a trailer or just do something, go put it, go put gas in my car or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of over it sitting in my way. And like, it's just, you can't start it and move it. You gotta have shit hooked to it. And I don't know. I don't know if I really want to fuck with it. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, the me that buys projects or anything really is a very different me than the one that has to actually go and execute on the plan.
Yeah. So it's a lot like how Freiberger said it. It's the thrill of the hunt. And then once you get it, you're like, I don't really care anymore. And case in point was my 69 C10 that I had, and I loved it. I wanted one. I still want one, but I got that one, got it running, and it wasn't a terrible truck. Needed the typical metal replaced, but I got it running, moving around, put tires on it, built an exhaust for it and all that. And then I never really did anything else with it. And I had it 5 years, and it just hung around and was most of the time used as a mobile storage unit.
I feel like, and this is something that probably a lot of the folks that do listen to this podcast regularly could stand to hear, because I could stand to hear it and maybe actually follow the advice. But it is possible to own a vehicle and just enjoy it. I think that's what I hear. I don't know. I tend to just take them apart and not be able to drive them, or take them to a point where they're not as enjoyable to cruise around in.
Right.
I think there's Josh has probably got it figured out more than the rest of us, because he's got his bird and he can get in it and drive it, and nice stereo, and
right. Well, and honestly, that's kind of
enjoys
how
the car.
that's how my Caprice is. And this was just kind of a hiccup. And I'm like, the bad thing was right before this happened, I'm thinking, damn. I was like, I beat the dog shit out of this thing every day. And I was like, it just takes it. It does not fucking care. And I'm like, I wonder how long it'll last like this. And then, fuck, here we go. And I didn't even say it. I was just thinking it. But no, so yeah, there's definitely a point where you modify shit too far, and then it's just not enjoyable anymore. And I want to be able to drive it and kind of enjoy it. And yeah, that's where I'm at with all my with my Trans Am and all. And like the buying the extra project cars, that goes to also, I don't want more shit anymore. I want more shit, but I'm at a point in my life where I have so much shit that I need to get rid of a bunch of shit, and then decide if I need to add more shit, which I'm sure I will.
Yeah, we've been downsizing. So maybe I mentioned it last time. So the Chrysler's gone, the SRT8. We're
Big sad.
we're down a Mopar,
Big sad.
but
I would have bought that thing years ago before I bought my Caprice.
yeah, so got that sold. There's one less in the driveway. We're working on selling the Civic, just to have, again, not another car sitting around. And then I don't know. I'll be down to. I got to get the OBS going. Like, that's really, really the goal by summer, is to be cruising that thing around and testing it, and hopefully it's in a good spot by LS Fest. If not, I'll have a comfortable ride in the 2014 again. I got my subs and all in there now. So
Hell yeah.
Truck's made the trip several times now, and I'll just keep doing that. But I think I said in our last episode that I was committed to making sure that I made the trip in the OBS. So
we got to keep you to it.
Somebody's got to, because I'm not gonna.
So I didn't tell you who I saw the other day. We haven't talked about this. I think we talked about. But anyway, so Mikey came by and he picked up that little a little 4-wheeler that I bought.
Yeah.
And he's gonna work on it for me and get it running. Honestly, I think it's gonna be pretty easy. I really did nothing to it. Like I picked it up and I saw if the motor spun over or not, and it spins over really nice. And I'm like, cool. Pushed it in the garage. I instantly messaged Mikey. I'm like, you want to get this thing running for me?
Nice.
I'm like, that's kind of where this is going to, like, I think that was the beginning of me, like, you know what? I just don't give a shit. I'll let somebody else do it. And maybe I'm finally getting to that point, and maybe I can start getting rid of shit instead of being like, I'm going to get to it. I just got to find time. Just be like, I don't care anymore.
Dude, I'll tell you.
Bye, Felicia.
Some of that, man, Proud is a pain in the ass. Like we had, I think I was telling you, like we had a toilet that, we started noticing some water kind of around the base. And was like, all right, I know what's up. I got to looking at it, and the flange was broke.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the wax wing was probably gone. And I'm like, okay, need to swap this out. I know what needs to happen. I know the steps of what needs to happen. And if I don't, I can look up YouTube. But I was like, I'm going to have a plumber come and fix this. And it was more than I wanted to spend. But it's like, dude, I mean, in a sense, I'm not saying what he charged wasn't fair by any stretch. He
Right.
helped us out, and he was here within a day, whatever. It worth every penny because of the time that I didn't have to spend doing that. And, really have just started to come to that realization. Like, there's some stuff that's worth doing yourself. And for me, it's usually, I want to do it once to know that I can and know that I know how to do it if I'm ever in a place where I can't call somebody. Right. But if I don't have to do it myself, I'm going to pay somebody to do it.
Yeah. So I've kind of found that maybe I just now had this realization that, like, I don't mind working on my cars, and I actually enjoy because when I hear and I'll put some music on or a podcast, and I'll just sit there and wrench away. Like, it sucks what happened to the Caprice, whatever, but I actually don't mind working on that car. And I'm wondering if it's just like the reason why I don't work on the Trans Am anymore. It's just because I don't want to work on it because I don't want to work on that style chassis anymore. I don't know. And maybe
Well,
that,
it's old hat. It's not something new.
yeah, but so then that brings me to, I'm glad that I didn't decide to turbo that car, because then it becomes even more of a project. And when you get it running and do all this shit, it's always a little tinkering bullshit. So, like, what I want to do with the car, I really need to do, is just put a little bit of money into it, build a nice all motor setup, have it painted, do all that, and then have a nice driving, 11 seconds stick shift car. And, it's clean. I could probably drive it anywhere and it be like a good driving car. And then, maybe not have to fuck with it as much. Like you said, and then that way, because that's one thing with the car runs, it's easy to work on. When I put it together, I made sure I set up like the exhaust with V-bands so everything comes apart good. But there's stuff that it's needed over the years, and I push it off because I'm like, I don't want to fucking work on this thing. And then something breaks on something else and it's way more of a job, and I just fucking hammer it out in a weekend. And I'm like, what are we doing? Why am I not doing that to this fucking turd over here? I think what it is there's so much that it needs all over. Like, not like, it's just like every little thing is, it's a 40-year-old car now. So it needs like a harness and like all the metal work done and paint. Yeah. I need to pull the dash out of it. Yeah.
How old is it? Oh God,
I know where you're getting.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's a 20-year-old car, man.
Yeah.
It's just 20 years old. The 80s was 20 years ago, right?
Anyways,
Oh,
so on to a newer subject. You want to see what I got from Temu?
yeah, I do. Very much.
So most of it's just like a bunch of little oddballs and tools, because I was like, I'm not spending a bunch of money on dumb bullshit that's probably fucking junk. So I was like, I'm gonna buy all the little cheap bullshit that you're gonna use, like the little plastic trim tools.
I have needed some of those, to be honest. Yeah.
I've had some from Harbor Freight, but like half of them got broken or lost, and I have a couple of them that I have, like one like this that I use all the time. I lost the rest of them, and I'm like, well, this stuff's cheap, and you're going to use it, so it wasn't a big deal for me to get them. And I got a bunch of those like little, like, I guess, like impact driver bits and like swivel heads, 2 different bags of them. Let's see, there's like actually 3 bags.
You get on there and it's like, oh, it's $2. Well, let me get a couple.
Yeah, well, then I got like these little swivel impact dealers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And those are nice too, just because they don't all the way 90 degrees like a swivel, U-joint or whatever.
And then just like another pack of picks, just because, they were cheap. I got this. Don't touch my shit.
Nice.
I thought that popped up. Like, that's pretty cool. So this goes to our garage organization. Bunch of socket rails, like a whole big ass box full of them.
Nice.
So I've got a lot of fucking sockets, and it'd be nice to try to kind of go through them and just have them somewhat organized. And I got one of, it's like a little galaxy light. I don't know. I think it was one of the free, whatever, 99 things. I don't know, whatever they call them. But you just plug it up and it's got like, puts the lights on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then this thing, it came in. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, what did I order? Is it like one of those things that you hold and you like try to open jars with? You know what I mean? You ever seen those?
No, but okay.
Really? It's like, they're like a round rubber or a block, like a square, like, and they're made out of rubber. And you take like a jar, and it helps you get a grip. But anyway, so I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, cause this one side's like bumpy. You can see the texture. And then it's got a Velcro one. I'm like, what the hell? I was like, well, you can roll it together and do that. I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? So then I had to get back on Temu and look. So when I was clicking on shit, it was said something Bluetooth speaker, and I was like, oh, it's a little Bluetooth speaker. No, what this is it's a non-slip handle for a Bluetooth speaker. You Velcroed around the handle, and now it's non-slip.
You can use it on a cooler handle or something.
Yeah, but I was like, people buy shit like that? I mean, I guess I did.
Well, it's either like or you're looking at it, and at some point you've been like by the pool and trying to carry shit, and the handle was wet, and it was like,
I guess.
and you see it on the old Temu, and you're like, be great if I had that.
I think
So
what it was, it said something Bluetooth speaker. I'm like, yeah, I don't need another Bluetooth speaker, but fuck it, I'll use it for something. And I probably just didn't pay attention to it. But, or, whatever. I'll figure out something to do with it, I guess.
I guess I can share some of mine. So I was scrolling through there, and I went on there looking for something in particular because I was curious. I was like, I kind of want it, but I don't know if I'm going to like it, so I'm not going to go buy something expensive. So, but then you get on there and it's like, oh, that's $2 or $3, And one thing is, if it's a Temu like item, it's got to be $20 or more, I guess, for it to be worth them shipping it from the across the big ocean, right? So I ended up with one of these, which these things are great for doing the windshield versus doing that contortionist yoga crap to get up in there and clean the windshield.
Yeah.
So pick up that. It came with like 6 of the little rags. But speaking of rags, it was like a 50 pack of microfiber cloths for $12 or something.
Right.
And I'm not going to use these for anything where I don't want to get lint or anything anywhere. I hadn't even opened them yet. But like when we were at the track at LS Fest, like Steve and them, when they're wiping all the rubber off the back of the car and stuff, and then it's like just toss the rags. Like you're never going to get those clean again. And so I don't even want to invest the price that the rags are like at O'Reilly's. But if you can keep a nice surplus of these, like in the car trailer or whatever, that's a pretty good deal. I think I picked. I don't know if I'm going to find it. It's just a kit for pushing like the links out of watches, like when you're sizing a wristwatch.
Yeah.
Like you clamp it in there and it actually just pushes it straight out instead of trying to like hammer the thing out like I do with a really small Allen bit and then end up potentially scratching your watch or whatever.
You a watch guy? You a watch guy?
I do like a nice watch. As a matter of fact, so for Christmas, my wife got me this I keep it on my nightstand. It's one of those tiny US General toolboxes.
Yeah.
And so I started keeping it on my nightstand because then I could, so this top drawer's got all my watches and the bottom drawer's got watches, top one's got all my pocket knives and stuff in it. And so they're just right there where I can get to them.
Right.
And they're not floating around in my nightstand drawer. So yeah, but she bought me that and I was like, yeah, I'm going to put it in the garage. And then I just set it on my nightstand while I was putting things away. And I was like,
yeah,
I like this.
Yeah. I know you sent me that and I went and bought one right afterwards.
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, that reminds me, I was talking with, was it Alex Parker on Facebook the other day? He just got it's like a Cobalt one.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I told him I was going to send him some stickers and I was going to try to go mail them out today, but I ended up working through lunch. So I got to get those out to him this week. He said he was going to send me some of his too. So, cause I've got my cooler that I've done up with stickers and stuff. So,
oh yeah,
but I wasn't going to order this. And then Steve told me that I better not. And the worst thing you can say to a dude with ADHD is, no, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that. So I am now the proud owner of a tack and shift light from Temu. It's not going to focus on it, but it's got there we go.
Yeah.
It's got the nice carbon fiber finish on it there.
Hell yeah.
It's going to be sweet. Dude, why can I not turn this thing right side? There we go. So my car, since I did the swap, I found out, so the tack was never working. Everybody's like, oh, you got to do the little resistors or whatever on it. But I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Because and I went and made sure the tuning was right. Like you have to change some of the numbers in HP tuners for the tack signal to get it to work right. And all that was correct. But mine is just 0. It's not like it's off by a little bit. It's just, it doesn't move. And so then I pulled the PCM out recently, and like the wire is running, with the main harness, and it goes to the C100 that's on the bulkhead there. But I think when I ran the Speedo wires and everything over, the harness that I bought, the guy wired it up for the Cable X harness, but I never had that. And so I think there was some miscommunication there, and I ended up with that. So I think I could just take where I've already ran the wire from under the dash over to where the PCM is, clip that white wire off the PCM, solder it in, and I think my tack would work. But then I was like, or I can just buy a tack.
Right.
So even a slightly inaccurate Chinese tack from Temu is better than nothing in theory. But now it's kind of got me curious. So with being able to look at HP tuners and see what the RPM's reading there, like I'll do some comparison videos because I'm kind of curious how out of whack it's going to be, if any, you know.
So speaking of that, it just reminded me. So I didn't buy them on Temu. I bought them on Amazon because I made a big Amazon order the other day too. I bought a pack of those heat shrink butt connectors that had the solder in them.
I've seen some of those at Tractor Supply in a multi-pack yesterday, like right by
Really?
the register. They just had a whole
Okay.
bunch of them in a kit. Yeah,
I bought like
I've
a
never used them.
400 pack for like $20.
Nice.
So, because the other day I was repairing wiring on the Caprice, and like I was trying to search around for butt connectors. I'm like, I know I've got a bunch, and I couldn't find the size that I wanted. And I had ones that were like way bigger, and I'm like, I'm doing this tonight. It's gonna work, and it worked fine. And I heat shrinked everything down, and it's just so I saw those. I'm like, I'm gonna fucking buy them. Yeah, I'm gonna try them. I've been wanting to try them. So
see, back when I was at Circuit City, man, when they taught us to wire up, you know, cars and do the stereos and things, if the customer wasn't getting the wiring kit, you know, that plugged into the factory harness and converted over to the universal harness for the stereo, we were taught to solder, right? We weren't using butt connectors or anything like that. Like it was like you should solder everything. And it seems to be such a hot topic now. It's like, you know, and I get like you could overheat the wire. Like you don't want to, you know, heat it up too much and cause issues. But
the argument I've heard before is the vibrations and the heat and all that. After a while, it creates the solder gets weak and will crack and then fail. So that's what I've understood. But honestly, there's a bunch of shit that I've soldered. I'm not a very good at it, and my shit still works.
Solderer.
Yeah, I'm not very good at it. I can't say shit either, and it still works.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we were always taught, you know, you kind of you get the wire hot, so you're heating the wire as well, and then you're kind of feeding that, so it's melting into the wires. And yeah, I've never had one fail, but you know, it is what it is. The little butt connectors with the solder are an interesting idea, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna take some scrap wire I have laying around and just play with them a little bit and see how they work out. And like, you know, I'm doing all this mini bike and go-kart shit now, but like the go-kart that I got doesn't have a kill switch other than the one on the motor. So you have to like reach back here. So I'm gonna probably buy some wire and put a new switch up.
Plowed right into a chain link fence one time trying to reach back there and get the kill switch as a kid. The throttle stuck. And Dad had showed me where the kill switch was, but when you're like a kid and all of a sudden you're just wide open across the yard, bouncing all around, trying to get back there to it was, yeah.
So I knocked a tooth out on mine. I hit a tree in the woods. And so I was following a neighbor boy. He had a dirt bike, and I was following him on this go-kart. And it was a rough ride. And it was a yard cart, you know. Wasn't one meant to really take off-roading. And I was flying through the woods, you know, hitting tree roots and shit. Well, and I was young. Like I was at a point where I couldn't sit and have my back against the seat. I was like leaned all the way forward on the seat, and like steering. And well, I'm going up through there and it was bouncing. And then like it jerked the steering wheel and the steering kind of stuck. And I guess I wasn't strong enough to pull it back quick enough. And it turned and I hit this tree stump and my mouth hit the steering wheel and my tooth went flying.
Dang.
Yeah. And like a couple of years before that, I fell in the bathtub and knocked out the other one. So there was like a couple year period where I had 4 teeth missing here.
Dang.
So
yeah, man, that's that was a hot topic at one point too. Not just whether to solder or not, but for whatever reason, I don't know why this sticks out in my memory. And this is back when I was initially doing my swap, but like those butt connectors with the solder in them were like circulating around on the Sloppy Mechanics page for a while.
Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe
I don't know if Matt was using them and people were like, "Oh, you shouldn't be using those," but like it was like people were, you know, it was one of those. You pull it up, and of course, the comments has got 500-600 comments where people were arguing about it or whatever. I don't remember exactly why they were arguing so much, but I just that's the first time I even knew those things existed.
Yeah.
And I think it was he released a video or something of him using some of them. And
so, and what I like watching the Legit Streetcars YouTube channel, and he's based out of Chicago. I'd love to, one of my trips, I like to try to meet dude and go at least check out his shop. But he uses them all the time. And, you know, he's always on there showing it. You know, I'm sure maybe, I think he's got a YouTube store. I don't know, maybe get some sort of kickback. I don't know. I don't care. But it's just interesting. And I've watched, him use a bunch, and I've seen other YouTube videos with some people using them, but I've never really heard the long term how they turn out, which for me, most of the time I'd be using them for like speaker wire or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to try them, see how they work out. I'll probably ruin a bunch of them trying them out.
Well, speaking of shows and YouTube personalities and all, this is something that it just reminded me. So I don't know if you've seen the post, but Freiberger is going down to the NHRA Gator Nationals, but I think he's getting his training as like an announcer. So he will be down there doing, I think, announcing for the NHRA Gator Nationals. And that's pretty darn cool.
Badass.
Because, I mean, they had to figure, what's his next thing, right? What's he going to be doing with them? And I'm sure they could just pick up and start doing just YouTube and probably do just fine. But, he seems like the type of guy who wants to, it's kind of like us, he wants to go and learn something new, do something new and cool.
Yeah. So I've actually really enjoyed watching the Steve Dulcich and the Freiberger's channels on their own now. Like, I actually really like Steve's stuff. I like him. I think he's just, I don't know. I think I like the dude. He just seems like pretty chill, kind of goofy, super intelligent, working on these cars. And I like his channel, and I watch the Freiberger stuff too. Usually whenever he's got a video, I'll play it. But yeah, I mean, because it kind of reminds me of kind of the early days of Roadkill. If you ever watched Roadkill when it was on YouTube before Motor Trend, I mean, it was a lot. I mean, given they had a little bit of a budget and they had, more than whatever, but it had a little more production value as far as, but no, it was good. I like them.
Yeah, I'll have to check out Steve's channel. I haven't looked at his, so.
Which I love, like, them bang shifting, and like just makes me watch. Then I'm like, man, sometimes I just want to put an old simple car together just to like ride around and just, it'd be violently run 14s.
Well, I mean, but you hear so many folks talk about it, right? That it's like, yeah, this is great, performing at this level, but like they were having more fun when they were just rolling up to the track and something they built and, going racing and just enjoying the hobby, enjoying the sport of it, and it not being, I do think you get to a level where it's a job, even just to do something that you're technically doing for fun. Like, you're not there's not many people going out making money racing. To be honest with you, like even like on the Dirty Mo Media podcast, Dale Jr. was talking about, he goes, the idea that you're going to go race and make money is crazy. Like, they're out there knowing they're, as an organization, they're losing money. Like the employees, the people, the owners, they're getting paid, but the team, the organization is not making money.
No.
Well, the joke is, how do you become a millionaire racing, right? You start out as a billionaire.
Right.
So yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But no, man, I think that's something we'll have to, definitely circle back to and, talk about some more, is what Freiberger's getting into and his new ventures.
And like, I know, I watch Finnegan stuff, and I've got a bunch of Finnegan shirts. I mean, I will say honestly, in the last couple of years, I've kind of gotten out of it. It's not anything against his stuff, or like, and kind of the same thing with Derek, Vice Grip Garage and stuff. I just, for whatever reason, I don't know if YouTube starts throwing my algorithm all off, but I've noticed I haven't seen any of their two things for a while, really, as far as pop up. And I don't know, but I do know, I think some people have had some conversations on this in the past, how some of the YouTubers, like Vice Grip, they're doing like 2-hour episodes sometimes. And it's like, I don't know if I want to sit here and watch. I mean, I do, but I don't have the time to just sit here and watch this type of a deal.
Yeah. And I think it was the guy I bought the toolbox from, Adam. I was talking to him and he was like, and he made a good point. And I think we've talked about this before, how the things like the reels and all that stuff, like it's shortening our attention span to an alarming level, for one thing. And not to mention, like, it's not like, okay, I'm watching reels and it's all like the same stuff. It's like, you might be a golf reel, and then it's about cars, and then it's weightlifting, and then it's, it's one and then the other and then the other. and you never really can focus on anything, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, but then a YouTube video, even a 45-minute or whatever video, I have to be watching it to understand and know really what's going on. Like, we post these as video, but for the most part, it's geared to the audio and the podcast. And he was talking about that with like, he'd been listening to the Dirty Mo Media podcast, and he's not even a NASCAR guy, but just to hear those old timers tell the stories about where NASCAR's come from, and but you can just turn it on and listen to it while you're working or something, and you don't have to like keep stopping what you're doing to look at the screen. And I think I think that's why I like podcasts as much as I do too, is I can consume that content without giving it my full attention. A 2-hour YouTube video is tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like, I've done that a bunch, like during the summertime, like we were talking about, you sometimes want to be outside working on something, and like, hell, I've come out here, worked on something, and like, I'll have like Cooper's podcast playing, or
I like his a lot.
Yeah, or like the Mind Pump guys, or even sometimes like the conspiracy theory stuff, I'll listen to. And it's just have it playing. And I've tried having like the TV on with YouTube playing stuff. And I don't know, it's different. But I guess it's because, how the audio is set up as well. Like you said, this is more focused towards the audio. Where, if it was like a video, people would spend a lot of time editing, probably adding in little sound blurbs more. And I don't know. It's just hard to sit there.
I mentioned it before that, we started using Riverside for recording these, and that's what we're recording on now. And after I kind of got the brand stuff set up, I fed it in like what is our intro and outro videos and stuff. I will say, maybe the editing has not as went down, but I'm not doing as much with like throwing in different pictures and little things like that. But Riverside has made the editing process exponentially easier. Like, I can go in and, it's automatically got my beginning and end. It cuts a lot of the ums and ahs out. So literally the extent that I have to look at it now is to just scroll through, the text transcript, and then I do all the, the graphics and thumbnails and stuff. And then we're kind of ready to go. And it's definitely made the production a lot easier. So, for anybody who's like, hey, I want to do a podcast, I think I've got something to say, I got something interesting to talk about. Like, it's probably never been easier, because all you need is a phone and an app. And, I do pay the monthly subscription. I think it's like $30 or something, but definitely worth it if you want to get into it and you've got ideas you want to get out there, but you don't nerd out the way I do over camera setups and figuring out, lighting or audio and things. And I've even had to get away from that just because, when the day job's demanding time, I don't, getting set up for the podcast and all the equipment and everything else almost became a hobby in and of itself. And the last thing I need is another hobby. I've got, guitars here, and then, you can see my sim racing wheel right here that, I've been trying to get set back up, and I don't need another hobby. So,
well, and so that's kind of, we were talking a little bit, before we started recording about, my little room here and, whatever. Well, I'm trying to get rid of a lot of shit. But part of the reason why I want to get rid of a lot of this shit is because it's stuff sitting around, and I have stuff that I've had forever and old hobbies, like all my guitars, and I want to get back into playing more. And I feel like I'm in this perpetual, like, there's just shit everywhere, and I need to have so much stuff I got to get done, so much shit I got to work on. And I'm like, if I can just start getting rid of some of the shit that I have to work on, I have to do all the time, I'll just, you know what I mean? Start getting rid of some of this extra bullshit that's everywhere, and get back to doing some more things that I enjoy doing. And not the cars aren't, because they're staying, but I mean, I've got like extra parts and just shit sitting around that I've kept that I'm like, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing I've learned too. I mean, maybe isn't always the case, but if you're in a place where you're like, I've had that set of heads over there and that set of headers, I've been holding to them in case I need them for a project, but I'm going to sell them for a reasonable price because I'm probably not going to get around to it. If in 2-3 years you are like, oh man, I need those, there's probably a guy like you who's had some sitting around the garage, and you'll find a deal and you'll just buy another set. You know what I mean? Like, that's not always the case, but more than likely you could replace it.
Yeah, and you figure it, like, with the way the internet is now, you can find anything, or
Yeah.
you know a
Anything.
guy or a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy that you can get you whatever you want. But no, I mean, Yeah, I'm ready to get rid of some stuff and do more car stuff. So that's what I want to try to do this summer is try to go to more events, you know, with the Caprice. I'm really debating on, so I want to work on the Trans Am, but I'm really kind of thinking now that, why don't I try to enjoy it a little bit this summer? I'll just buy a battery for it and maybe we can kind of do a few little videos on maybe cleaning it back up a little bit, doing some maintenance on it, and maybe just driving it some this summer. That might be kind of fun. I guess we'll have to ask you guys, is that something you'd like to see? We could post some videos, some updates on it. Like, honestly, it really don't need a lot. Oh, it needs a battery. That's really the only thing preventing me from driving it much. And it's full of like parts and tools right now. But I mean, I could put a battery in it and like deep clean the car one
Yeah.
weekend. And then like probably there's a few little repairs here and there I'd like to do, need to do, but really it just needs a battery and cleaned up and I could drive it. So like I want to take it apart, but I'm like, man, I could just do that and I was thinking about that today, walking by looking at the car. And I'm like, I could just be like, fuck it, do the whole Freiburger thing and just why wait forever? And I'm never getting this shit done. I'm just letting it sit just because it has a bad battery because I want to paint it, do all this bullshit. Why not just fucking clean it out and just go fucking drive it?
Don't get it right. Just get it running. Like
Yeah.
I've literally told people I need to tattoo that my forearm so that
Yeah.
I'll actually like believe it maybe and actually
No,
do it because I
I was
do.
actually having that today.
Well, I told you, the other week that with my Firebird and even with this OBS, like I start thinking through like, well, if I pull the cam out of the other engine, like, well, I might as well do this while I have it apart. I might as well do that. And then I end up overthinking it all. And then it takes forever to kind of get things going. Now the flip side to that is that, like with me, I've never pulled an engine out of a car at all back when I started my swapping my Firebird. And the first time I tried to crank it, it cranked and ran and, it was good to go because I had sort of agonized over all the details and done a lot of reading about what mistakes other people had made and tried not to, retrace those steps. So, I mean, I think there's some merit to being a bit cautious, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Well, so,
I'm definitely too far to the other side of that spectrum.
I mean, I guess I'm at a point. So when I did my Caprice, I really didn't overthink it. And I just kind of like bought shit. I mean, I kind of, I did my research and I knew what parts I wanted to get and I ordered shit. Then I just like, once I got in there, I just hammered it away in like a month, pulled the engine out of it, had it sitting next to the car, went through it, cleaned it, and, put the cam in it, did all this shit, had the heads done, and just slammed it together. But then in doing that, I didn't overthink stuff and I didn't double check everything I ordered and I never did the trunnion upgrade. So, well, part of it was, like I said, I didn't order the parts. And then at that point, I'm like, fuck it, we'll do it later. And then, ADHD later never came, become a temporarily permanent. I've actually been doing that for years on the Trans Am. So that's a big thing. When I did that swap, there was a lot of stuff that I did. That's the only, like, so I may end up, it's going to snowball. I know it is.
It always does.
Honestly, all right, the two biggest things that bothers me the most on it right now. Well, all right, three. The three things that it really, really needs work on. And honestly, for probably like sub $500, I could fix all of it. A battery, well, maybe about $500. So a battery, and then basically a new fuel system, but more so a fuel lines. I've got a fuel pump already to put in it, but I want to do all new lines and fittings and figure out some of the wiring in the car for the chassis side. The harness for the engine, the swap is great. Car runs and drives great. It's just the lights don't really work very well anymore. And like there's a bunch, like the turn signals don't work right. We've talked about it some. So I mean, if I could fix those three things and just run and drive it and beat on it for a little while, I'd be all right with that.
That was one thing that kind of had me down on mine for a bit was, we found out when me and Dad were at LS Fest driving into the track. Matter of fact, it was the rep that was there from Elgin. He was staying at the hotel with us and he was like, your brake lights aren't working right. And so when I would put my foot on the brake, one brake light would come on and one reverse light would come on. And when I would turn my left blinker on, the light would just come on and stay on. It didn't blink. And when I would turn the right one on, the right reverse light came on. It was freaking, I mean, it was just weird. And literally, I think 6-8 months went by, because I was like, well, I ain't driving the car much. And when I did, I was just like, whatever, I'm going 4 or 5 miles up the road, just driving it here and there. So finally, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's the flasher. And I bought a replacement little flasher and plugged the thing in under the dash, and it's all working.
You know, I've never thought of that.
I don't know if I was on TGO or just like Googling random stuff about lights being weird. And somebody was like, did you check the flasher? And I was like, I've never heard of having to replace one of the darn things.
Well, I take it back. So years ago, I was fighting issues with mine. I might have put a flasher in it, but it doesn't mean it was good.
Yeah.
So,
because I mean, it was the one thing that got me is like, you turn it on the dash and you would hear it go, toom, and I didn't hear it trying to change. So I was like, maybe that's what it is. And sure enough, that was it. So,
well,
but I think we're right here at the end. I do want to mention, there were some comments on the last YouTube video. So shout out to Mikey. He's always commenting and checking us out. Steve, my best friend, is out there, throwing some comments out. So we appreciate that. And then one guy mentioned, we were talking about hybrids and EVs and stuff, that locomotives have been using that for years. And I looked into it briefly, that like GE or somebody, had them in some of their locomotives where you've got a diesel engine as a generator and then an electric powertrain. What I'm curious about is when is it using the electric powertrain versus the diesel, or is it like just some level of assistance so that the diesel gets better mileage? Like I'm curious how that works. And I was going to look into it before we recorded again, and work's just been crazy, but I want to look into it because I'm also curious, does it like scavenge any, with the heat and everything from the brakes and charge back into the electrical system as well, like DRS on or not DRS, but the systems that F1 cars use, right? Where they pull energy from the brakes. And I don't know, I'm curious how it works now. So I'll definitely be looking into that, and I want to talk about it at some point. But I think we keep saying this if anyone knows anything about them.
Well, I know there's a friend of mine that I talked to. He's all big into trains. Maybe I'll send him a message. Actually, there's a couple people.
Because those articles where they were talking about implementing the system were from back in like 2008. So it's where it came from there is probably pretty sophisticated. So I'd be really curious to see where it's at. Yeah. So cool. Well, between now and when we talk again, maybe I'll install my Temu TAC, and Steve can judge me. But we'll see how accurate this thing is. And if I make any more Temu orders, I will let you all know, because I've got quite a few things in the cart. Got some, these wall hangers, like hang your grinders on, instead of having them in the bottom of the toolbox all tangled up. So
cool. Hell yeah.
Lots of stuff. But cool, man. Well, it's been good chatting with you, and we're right at an hour. So we're going to end it here and see you guys in number 28.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you later.
Have a good evening, folks.